If you've ever chased government contracts only to feel buried under portals and paperwork and proposals that went absolutely nowhere, well, this episode is for you. For too long, the old way of government procurement has looked like this: endless searches, outdated databases, scattered information, and months of effort spent responding to RFPs you were never positioned to win. But what if there was a way for you to move faster and win more bids? Welcome back to Elevating Enterprise, the podcast that gives you a 100,000-foot view of success and the elevator access to get there. I'm your host, Jazzy T, together with RJ Williams and our special guest, Nick Lopez. And today we are talking about a more intelligent way to approach your next request for proposal. Good morning, guys.
Oh,
good morning.
All right, so Nick, we're going to start off. Can you please give us your elevator pitch?
Absolutely. And I appreciate y'all taking a little bit of time here on a Friday to chat with me. So we essentially built Prosal for business development teams at defense contractors and federal contractors as a whole. Now, what Prosal does is really synthesize all the data that is strewn about all those endless databases, news articles, and bring it together in one place. Think ChatGPT, but trained for government contracting.
All right. So Nick is the founder and the CEO, and you mentioned this is an AI-powered platform, and really to help businesses understand where the real opportunities lie. And this is before RFPs drop. Is that correct?
Yeah, so more specifically, where they lie for them. One of our biggest things is personalization really matters. Your capabilities matter. Your connections matter. Your past performance, your teaming partners, all those things matter when you're mapping the market and finding your next opportunity.
So this is RJ space all the way. I'm going to sit back and take notes here. So RJ, go ahead and dive right in.
hey, Nick, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out to share this valuable information, especially in the economic environment we're in and what's in store. There's still opportunities in 2026, and I would like to, kind of show how Prosal can kind of complement your efforts and to pursue those opportunities. So one thing I wanted to know is hold on, let me make sure I got it up here. Yeah, so why, as a Lockheed, Martin engineer, what did you observe to make you want to kind of dive in and what problem did you discover that you wanted to solve while you were an engineer at Lockheed Martin?
Yeah, I love that question because the story is actually one with quite a bit of twists and turns. We actually started in the nonprofit space, believe it or not, with this unique insight of really simply the RFP sucks. Um, and we had seen this. My co-founder, Alfredo, was a consultant in the nonprofit world. He had an agency. Our third co-founder, Niall, was working at Qualcomm at the time. And we just saw this immense opportunity, again, pre-AI, to solve this process of the RFP. Why are people spending all this time writing these massive proposals that barely get read, and they go with their buddy anyway? And so for about a year and a half, we built a two-sided marketplace to help nonprofits find diversely owned and operated agencies outside of their normal networks. Now, from that time, it turned out that the problem wasn't really with the RFP process itself, but the people involved. Is really we had to face this truth that it is a relationship-driven business and it's a relationship-driven process. And once we had built that two-sided marketplace, we realized that a lot of these nonprofits were just more comfortable going with who they knew. And so we actually pivoted away from that and helping our agencies who were not winning these nonprofit contracts to find these state and local contracts that were relevant to them. And so that did really well for about a year. And then we realized that we were just feeding them opportunities, right? It's and this is almost like a newcomer realization to the RFP process writ large, right? Whether in the state or local or the federal space, you go and you see an opportunity that looks like it's perfect for you. You pull it up, it's 15 pages. You spend a couple weeks with your team putting together a proposal, and you never hear back. Well, what we realized was that what was really happening in the back end for the majority of these things were that they were written for somebody else. Now, that's not to say that a lot of people were able to win contracts through Prosal, but that was ended up being the minority. Like 10 to 20% of those RFPs that were coming out from non-governmental entities, state and local, municipal, nonprofit, were kind of written already for someone else. You just didn't know it.
Absolutely. And that usually comes
And
out at
so
the
we,
request for information phase. For those who do not know, usually the government is doing market research. Contracting officers are putting out a request for information, and that's kind of to get who they want people to respond to it and give those details Nick just went over. And a lot of times, if you hit spot on, you're going to be the person they have the relationship with. And even though there will be a proposal come out some weeks later or months, it's already written for the person who responded to the RFI and hit on the salient points that they agree on, and that is perfect for them to bid on, and they usually win that contract. So sorry to butt in there, Nick. I just wanted to clarify some
no,
things.
you're good. Absolutely. And so at that point, we essentially realized that while the state and local space was facing these problems, really this was magnified at the federal
Absolutely.
level, given our background in defense contracting, kind of understanding a little bit more about that. We shifted our focus to the space of federal contracting, defense contracting as a wedge, with this insight, right, that relationships win contracts. And so we, as a startup, opted to start with middle market companies, right? Companies that were already established. They had somewhat bridged the valley of death, but you know, their small business certification is expiring next year, and they got to go against the Lockheeds,
Mm-hmm.
the Boeings, the Raytheons. And we were able to take this idea of moving away from the data of contracts themselves, right? It's not about finding the RFP, it's not about finding the RFI, but it's about finding the leading indicators that an agency or a customer has money and they have a problem that they are facing, and you know who to talk to understand the most about that problem. Because the way you get written into these things is by truly understanding the problem they're facing and helping them come up with a
Absolutely.
solution. You are a design
Mm-hmm.
partner.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an excellent point, and I think you hit right on it. So how does Prosal? How am I saying it right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect. And the idea, the mistake of proposal is very
Right.
intentional.
So how does Prosal now? Is this a AI powered tool, or what have you? Do you have a team of researchers or scientists or what have you back there kind of looking through this data, or is it an AI driven tool, proprietary, or are you using the tools on the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in terms of the actual implementation, it's a combination of both. It is majority AI powered, but for new workflows, new ideas, we typically have a human in the loop to validate
Mm-hmm.
the data is correct, cited, etc. But what we do really, really, really well is understand your company, understand your capabilities, your past performance, your teaming partners, your award history, and then marry that with what's already out there, whether it's a recompete that's coming out in 2 years, or it is a source of sought or an RFI, or even just a piece of news that indicates that a specific customer is having a problem. We are able to essentially map the market, tell you where to focus, not on the contract side, but on the people side, because ultimately people buy from people. So we've taken the approach of, well, it's not really about finding the RFI. That's great. But really, it's about the people behind the RFI, that triangle that I'm sure you're familiar with, which is the end
Mm-hmm.
user, the contracting official, and then the influencer, right? Those three points of the triangle need to all be in communication, and it's your job to get them on the same page and help them get to a solution rather than finding an RFP, writing a 50-page proposal, and then wondering why you didn't win.
So staying with that, so does the Prosal tool and Is it predictive analytics, or I mean, how does it? You want to let's get this down to earth, because a lot of these small business and some of the, I know the established middle market, the medium sized businesses, that's kind of what you're describing. They're gonna listen and kind of want to augment what they're already doing with a tool like this. But the small and
Hmm.
this new medium size, they don't usually have departments that analyze technology and do things like that. So how does Prosal fill that gap for those type of companies?
Yeah, I love that question. And essentially, what Prosel is able to do is understand. You basically talk to Prosel and say, these are the things that we do. These are the things that we do really well. Step one, help me map the market, right? Which customer? Is it the VA? Is it's the Army? Is it somewhere in the Department of Defense? Let's say you're an IT services contractor. The first thing that Prosel does is understand what you do and then figure out who is buying what you sell, right? To give you that idea of where should I place my efforts? Because a lot of people think of the federal government as this one big
Hmm.
conglomerate, when in reality, every funding sub office is its own customer and its own, they have their own idiosyncrasies, they have their own language, which is why crosstalk exists. And Prosel basically separates the signal from the noise, looks at all those available avenues, and really narrows down on those top 3 to 5 for you to say, okay, well, I think DHA might be buying what
Hmm.
we're selling. From that step, taking it a step further and understanding where you're at in your contracting life cycle. Have you won a couple of prime contracts? Are you mostly a sub? Do you have an 8A? And really understanding, you know, everything on that personalized journey. It's almost like a lot of these platforms out here that help you find RFPs are like choose your own path, choose your own journey, which implies a knowledge of the market landscape and how this thing works. Prosel guides you. Prosel tells you, hey, these are the 3 agencies that are buying what you're selling. This is when they're going to buy. These are the top competitors. These are your top teaming partners based on your capabilities overlap. These are the people at those companies that you should reach out to and the events that you should be going to go and form these relationships before an RFI or a source of SOT is
Absolutely.
released. We essentially condense all the open source signal intelligence into a digestible report driven format that you can export to slides, infographics to help you truly understand the strategy and then give you the tools to go out and execute.
I love that. Excellent. What that does is that helps people, that cuts down on the time wasting component of chasing these contracts. So, Nick, the other thing is, obviously we had a new administration. The FAR has been changing.
Hmm.
What has Prosel done to adjust to this, adapt to these changes in your model there?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And the good news is that we haven't done
Hmm.
much. It actually has been super beneficial for something like
Hmm.
Prosel. So let me take you kind of the days of old, right? The days of old was, hey, I need a new EHR system. Let's say the VA wants something, and Booz Allen and Leidos or Raytheon would come in and say, hey, we can build this out for you. You can trust us to build this out. Just give us a couple $1 billion, and in 5 years, we may have something for
Right.
you. I know that we got to take a second to appreciate that and how it went on for so long because relationships, right? This new administration, while they are cracking down on a lot of the 8A certifications and DEI initiatives writ large, which is, there's many
Right.
opinions there. What they are doing is cutting down on quote unquote waste. You see it start with Doge, but now what that's leading to is shrinking acquisition
Hmm.
timelines, right? So they're moving away from the days of old where these companies have 2 to 5 years to send their army of BD folks to influence this thing and pull it from every lever. Rather, what they're doing now is here's an RFI. Nobody really knows about this thing. Actually, people respond. And from there, they make small awards in terms of prototype investments. So more towards an agile
Yeah, I noticed that.
methodology rather than that waterfall
Hmm.
approach. So they're making awards faster at a faster rate, with the goal being that we're not contracting on, and this might get a little technical here, on these different palm cycles, right? That you have to get the palm cycle approved, and then you have to write the requirements in, and then you have to create a program of record, which is a super lengthy process. Rather, they're moving towards more, we want commercial companies in the federal government, which you'll see commercial solutions offering, CSOs, BAAs, broad agency announcements, which kind of act like these vehicles of money that give a little bit more flexibility in spending and allow them to make a lot more smaller awards and actually whittle down the down select and the pool by
Hmm.
performance. So now you have an opportunity to get in, get your foot in the door, and prove your worth rather than needing all this complex, far based past performance and things that normally would shake out those commercial companies that are succeeding in the commercial world that want to break in and have a great technology and just can't.
Right, right. No, that's what I noticed as well as I did an analysis of the some of these new rules and policies. Like they actually can be
Hmm.
good for the small and medium-sized businesses trying to break in, but you kind of you have to have everything together. You have to come in and be ready to offer value rather than use certifications or what have you to kind of get in that door.
I'm curious, have you seen an uptick, and this is a study we're running right now, in the prevalence of CSOs, BAAs, or a shrinking in the timelines? Because I just looked at this opportunity for skip tracing out of DHS, and they went from RFI to RFP to award in less than 90
Yeah,
days,
I'm
which
seeing some of
prior
that.
to this year's
Yeah,
unheard of.
yeah, absolutely. I've seen some of that working with the local Apex accelerator here. We got a good
Hmm.
relationship with them and P-Tech before. Coming from two
Hmm.
states, I've got all my experience in the state of Michigan, where we're from, and I worked, and that's where I learned a lot of this, and that's over 20 something years ago. But it hasn't really changed. Some of the core framework is kind of the same, but obviously, like we just discussed there's new administrations kind of disseminate their own policies. So you have to keep up and adapt as you go there. But like you said, I know this administration has been a little disruptive, but some of these changes are good for those who have specific skill sets that they're ready to serve the government rather than just positioning. I just want to do the government business, but more so,
Hmm.
hey, I know how to take boilers out of large, buildings that the government owns, and then that way you could have a good chance of winning and getting in. But also, before I forget, Nick, speaking of the middle
Mm.
market, I know since 2010, it's almost been a 40% reduction in small and medium sized businesses doing business with the government. What is your thought behind that? And can Prosal impact that type of statistic there, or is it something that is? I mean, because you're there in D.C., what has been the move to kind of impact that number like that? Because that's pretty. I thought I saw something like 125,000 small, medium sized, and then now it's down to 60, 70,000. But the opportunities are more, and there's more dollars to extract from. So, where is the imbalance, and what have you seen since you've been there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I do see, two potential paths. One being the disintermediation of big prime as a potential path, just because the money is being allowed to be spent by individual offices. So they have more liberty to just disperse that, form their own relationships, and find those specialized vendors that can get the job done faster, cheaper, more efficiently, and has that mom and pop approach. Like you're not going to be exchanging emails with the VP of a massive conglomerate until sale and then never hear back from them, right? Like there's almost like a better customer experience when you go towards those small specialized vendors. And so I can see this transition to more solutions offerings, quicker timelines, smaller initial investments, but an ability to get your foot in the door, really taking those specialized projects that the Booz Allens have dominated
Absolutely.
for decades and really breaking them up into smaller pieces across more businesses, perhaps. Now, there is another school of thought that says, well, actually, what this is allowing the army of business development folks at these massive defense contractors, these tier one primes, to do is be able to guide their buddies in the government to allocate towards them, right? And we may see, I think it's going to lie somewhere in between where primes are more incentivized to become just rely on their systems integrator roles and be risk reducers and be able to pull in commercial, small businesses, and specialized vendors under their risk umbrella, allow them to do the work, but ultimately have the risk being absorbed by those big primes. So it's a great question. I wish I had the answer,
No, it's all right.
but as always, there's two extremes, and I think it usually lies somewhere in the
Yeah, my
middle.
company does a lot of research, so we stay on top of those things. And last one, I'll let Jazz jump in here shortly. What type of so in teaming, joint ventures, does Prosal impact any of that? What have you seen?
Yeah, so the really cool thing about Prosal is it is valuable at all phases of the business development and capture life cycle. One of those being teaming partners, right? And so we can drop an opportunity into Prosal and it'll tell you the narrative history, the hot button items, the key technical POCs, the capabilities and your alignment to each of those requested line items, competitive landscape, incumbent landscape, implied incumbent. So let's say it's a quote unquote new requirement, but a certain company has won 98% of awards in that capability in that office in the last 5 years. We consider that the implied incumbent, but we'll take it as one step further as partnering. And so based on your capabilities, where you slot in, Prosel will figure out where the gaps are between your capabilities and what they're requesting in that proposal and suggest those teaming partners that have the past performance that match up with those capabilities you lack and implied have those relationships based on their winnings and the trend lines of their winnings in that specific sub agency last 3 years, last 5 years.
Excellent. I'm loving this conversation. We can go all day.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm sure you could. No, it's been really wonderful for me to be able to just sit back and listen to both of you and get some insight here. I feel like this conversation has, given us a new way of looking at government contracting, right? And as you were saying, it's not so much like a lack of opportunity or lack of knowing how to find RFPs. It's really lack of relationships. Am I reading that right?
Mm-hmm.
So could you
Mm-hmm.
tell me possibly a success story that you or one of your clients or people who use Prosal have went through the process and maybe their before and after? What was it like them before Prosal and how is it different now?
Yeah, love that question. I'll bring up a very familiar example first and foremost of basically around these relationships. One of our clients was looking at an opportunity. It was a source of sought, very early stage opportunity. And we had basically given them a list of technical POCs at that office that were likely related. And we had actually mapped up their past performance to that office. And by looking at that data presented to them, it was able to spark an idea. And mind you, this guy has been doing business development. He's ex-Navy for 20 years. So he's learned a lot, but also all that information can't be in your head at once. But bringing it up to the fore and showing him these are the people at this office. This is your past performance. This is the work that a different team had done that you didn't know about. He was able to have that aha moment and connect the dots with the data in front of him to say, oh my God, I know that guy. I have a relationship with him already. The other example was, oh wait, I know the guy who knows that guy. And he was able to bridge the gap and actually establish that relationship where otherwise, with a traditional aggregator of RFPs or RFIs doesn't have that personalized level of information that we find so important. Now, on the other side, on the flip side, outside of that aha moment in the data, what we've been able to do is compress the decision-making timelines. I'll give you an example. In a traditional case, you find an RFP, you got to go take it to the bid board, right? You got to go talk to your manager and say, hey, I want to justify going after this capture opportunity. It's going to take us 6 months. We're going to have to fly to 7 different conferences. We're going to spend $2 million on this capture, but it's a $50 million opportunity, so we should be good. Now, the thing is, they got to spend their time putting together this reasoning and this deck and this PowerPoint. And before Prosal, they would go through 8, 9 different sites, copy, paste, Google, dig deep, put it all together. With Prosal, we've compressed that timeline from weeks to hours, really giving them that decision edge to have less time digging and really just copy pasting information and more time thinking about that higher level strategy because you have all that information up front. So really reducing a lot of the admin side, because our theory is TTC, right? And this is not a popular theory yet, but I'm hoping after this show it becomes the talk of the town. TTC is the only metric that we think that business development teams should be tracking. And if you're a smaller business and you don't have a business development team, it's typically the CEO or the head of sales. You should be tracking TTC and doing everything you can to reduce anything that takes away from TTC. And I'm sure you're wondering right now, what the heck is TTC? TTC is simply the time spent talking to the customer. Our theory is that as TTC goes up, your win rate will increase, and that is the only leading indicator for win rate of an opportunity. And so our theory is if we can reduce everything administrative, everything research, everything in the nitty-gritty that you need to qualify an opportunity, understand who to talk to, competitors, etc., if we can reduce all those things as close to zero as possible, that frees your limited time up to spend time talking to the customer.
Agreed. And in my camp, we call it a client needs kind of assessment, where we constantly are discussing with the customer, meeting them where they're at, kind of iterating what they said at first, and then paring that down to you're developing a relationship, a trust between each other, but also it has a purpose at the end. So agreed, Nick. I love what you're saying here today.
And I just want to throw in from my corner of the world, we call that FaceTime.
Yep.
Which everybody can relate to that. As smaller businesses, and a lot of people who are listening to this show, that's the camp that they're in. And we talk a lot about working on our business versus working in our business and all of that. And it seems like with Prosal, you can spend a little less time in the fields, like you said, in the research and copy pasting and all of that, and actually go to the high level networking event and do the high level networking. You can let Prosal be your assistant, it seems like.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, you got to be TTC, FaceTime, you got to be interfacing with the right person. Because if you spend all that time talking to somebody who is a cheerleader but has no decision-making power and no influence, you've essentially wasted your time.
And so how do we know that we're talking to the right person?
Well, for that, you just got to use Prosal, right? But no, I think that in itself is, a lot of the research that these very sophisticated business development folks will do. And it's interesting that we've gotten to learn a lot from our partners because we obviously enable them. We've built out a lot of different AI-driven functionality to just equip them to do their job more efficiently. But really, it once you do all the pre-work, once you do all the strategy, once you've gone through market mapping, once you understand where your capabilities apply, once you understand who has money, when is it coming up, do they have a preference for other vendors based on their historicals, then you can figure out within the context of a very specific opportunity who cares, right? And it is almost like it's an exercise, it's a mental exercise. Who cares about EHR in the VA? Well, one of the end users probably cares
Absolutely.
about it. Someone that's spending half their time entering this data and getting errors over and over and over again, right? And so, I mean, like anything else in business and entrepreneurship, you obviously have to get creative. You can go to a VA hospital and just do interview, ask people about their experience. Hey, you don't like the way that Booz Allen's custom EHR is implemented? Why not? And then when you take this, you're the smartest person in the room, you take this to the higher level decision maker, you say, hey guys, I've kind of done your job for you. I've talked to everybody, I've gotten feedback. These are the 3 points that is really they're struggling with. And this is how it's affecting, your patient throughput, patient satisfaction, whatever metric they care about. Now, when you come armed with that information to that decision maker and you look like the smartest person in the room, you are no longer a vendor in their eyes. You are a partner. And that's where the shaping begins.
And that's what it really comes down to in the end. Are you providing a solution when we need it? And so all Nick is Prosal and what him and I have discussed, from people with experience is just there's a lot of moving parts. You just got to pick them and put them together for your purpose, and then you have a chance to win. Nothing's guaranteed, but you do have a chance to win if you approach it that way.
And ultimately, the win rate overall on average is 33%.
Yeah.
Right. And batting 333 in baseball is pretty darn good.
Excellent batting average. So but you see, you're going to have to do the work. It's not merely attending the one or two conferences you might in your backyard, because we've seen that. The big Apex conference was in upstate New York in August. I was there, pretty much the Department of Defense, major contracting officers and decision makers were there. And they wanted specific things. They wanted a lot of cybersecurity, intelligence type of businesses that can support those efforts. But if you don't have that, it's going to be tough to get in front of them to be serious. So you just got to know, and I saw that on Prosal, which was going to be my next question. How do you see, you said you target certain events, industry days, certain some of the trading conferences that the government has. And I think you answered part of it, how do you scrape those and make sure the right people are at the right conference?
Yeah, I love that question. It's one of the tools that I personally use when I go to conferences, right, to meet potential partners. Our conference intelligence tool, we've essentially created a database of the major conferences and a handful of industry days that are relevant to our partners based on their capabilities, what they're going after. And what we'll actually do is once you click like or favorite on that conference, we'll actually pull in all the speaker lists and use that to understand who's going to be there generally. We'll also pull in some social listening from LinkedIn as well. Not only that, but when you see a speaker that is relevant to an existing pursuit, we'll flag that and give you that read ahead based on their publicly available articles, based on the initiatives of their specific office, and really give you that read ahead of how to approach them after they get off the stage, what to talk about, and how it relates to your pursuits. That way, you're not just wandering around. You got your targeting list. You know exactly who you're going to talk to. You're going to pull up that brief and you're going to say, hey, Mr. Johnson, I love that article you put out about the F-16s and how they're not meeting your capabilities, right?
That's
I want to talk
amazing.
to you about X, Y, Z and how we solve that problem. And this guy is going to tell you. Mr. Johnson is going to be like, I love how much you know about me. You are so ahead of the curve. Like, let's have a follow-up conversation, and that's where you win.
I love that.
That's amazing. I'm thinking of a lot of uses for that. Even often I moderate panels. Actually, we have one coming up next week. And if I could just pull up the speaker list and have all the information I need to formulate my questions. So, from the user point of view, is Proposal for big companies, solopreneurs, medium-sized enterprise, everyone in between? Kind of how does it work? How do we get involved?
Yeah, so right now we're hyper focused on delivering to our mid-sized clients, just because, as a startup, you have to focus on a small group and really optimize the experience for them. We typically, our AI works best when there is some contracting history there that kind of fuels the rest of the platform, is that past performance, that market mapping. Now, that's not to say that our newest tool, our market intelligence tool, it's called Corvus. It's currently in beta, but it is that jack of all trades, right? That is that 24/7 analyst that can answer any and all of your questions, from market mapping to competitive analysis. So that tool in itself, it's very self-service and it can be used by everyone. But I mean, in contracting as a whole, I mean, if you're a solopreneur, really what you're looking to do is partner with people, right? Like, you should be focusing on developing partnerships, potentially joint ventures, but more so small pieces of subcontracting work to build up your past performance. Prosal has worked really well for companies that have their foot in the door, 1 to 5 million in awards, growing and looking to see, how do we expand in our existing office? How do we take our capabilities to a new customer, for example? But really, Corvus, I would say, is the best way to engage. And, on our website there, if you just book a demo, I can walk you through, a Corvus implementation. Within the next month or so, we should have it live in self-service. We're still working out some of the bugs, making sure that all the information is cited, accurate, and we have the largest scope of information. But that's really the
Nice.
best way to engage is, jack of all trades, it's Corvus.
So we're talking possibly March to be safe. It could go live. And what is the website where people can go and either book a call with you or get involved with the live version?
Yeah, so the easiest way to do so is just go to prosal.com, Prosal, and there is a book a demo link there. What we will be rolling out, hopefully in the next week or so, is the ability for you to submit a test query to Corvus. So just keep an eye out for that. It should be under on prosal.com underneath a heading that says Corvus Competitive Intelligence. So if you're listening to this in February 2026 or later, that's the way you should approach this.
All right, so we have Nick Lopez on Elevating Enterprise with us today. How could someone connect with you directly? Maybe just, on a colleague level, just likes what you're saying and maybe want to connect with you on social. Where do you like to hang out online?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with me, super easy. I'm Nicholas Lopez on LinkedIn. I like to have the full name because it's very proper.
Yes.
Um, but if you go to linkedin.com, there's a direct link, linkedin.com/in/the Nick Lopez. I guess that's no longer a link that they like to include there. But if you'd like to shoot me an email as well, nick@prosal.com. Again, Nicholas Lopez on LinkedIn, and I'm looking for it right now to make sure I have this
And
proper link here.
we can put the link in the show notes of this episode
Yeah,
as well to make it real easy.
absolutely. And it is linkedin.com/in/the Nick Lopez.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Nick for coming on. A very enlightening conversation, and it feels good to somebody in my arena that that I can go back and forth with. So we really appreciate your time, Nick, today, and this should be very insightful for our audience.
And I appreciate y'all having me on. This has been the best start to a Friday I've had in quite some time here. But I do want to leave everybody here with one closing thought, which is, when you are having those conversations, stop selling. Just be curious and be genuine.
Absolutely.
Be curious about it. That shows.
Yep. And we can end on that note. Thanks, Jazz. Do your thing.
All right. So thank you so much for listening to Elevating Enterprise. If this episode shifted your perspective, share it with another business owner who's been stuck in the old system. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's next right here on Elevating Enterprise, because success isn't overnight, it's strategic. Thanks,
Nick,
guys.
stay on for a second.
Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
Nick, yeah, I want to follow up. Why did you have to raise 1.5 million to get this off the ground?
Yeah, so the biggest thought realistically was don't work for free.
I agree. I agree. That's enough. That's enough said.
I mean, look, we were when we started this 26 years old, not a lot of savings, and so we were willing to give up a percentage of the company to pay ourselves a
Yeah, no,
salary to
I
do
agree.
this, on top of the 90, 100-hour weeks that we're working anyways. Like, might as well not
Yeah, not
struggle about
be able to go
where my
buy
next
a
meal is going to
meal
come
and,
from.
and make sure our water bill is paid. No, I understand. No, man,
Yup,
hey,
yup.
man, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I'm glad your team reached out to us, and we're
Likewise.
looking forward to collaborating in the future continuously.
Absolutely. Let me know. Happy to jump on. This was awesome. I love it.